Hello from the Wenham Street Brass. We're about two-thirds the way through our Art of Brass Indiegogo fundraiser. You may know that we started the project on a trip to New York in October. In New York, we spoke with Dr. Scot and Joseph Anderer. We're sharing a small amount of what they spoke to us about here. In the first few clips, Mr. Anderer and Dr. Reed introduce themselves, and Dr. Reed talks a bit about how he came to teach.
My name is Sean Reed, and I'm the director of the brass program at NYU Steinhardt, the Department of Music and Performing Arts Professions, and I'm a trombonist. At this time, I'm a trombone teacher and a performer. I play with the Brooklyn Brass Quintet. I've had a career where I started out as an orchestral musician, playing some regional, winning some regional jobs in school, and then subbing with some major symphony orchestras, Houston Symphony, Buffalo Philharmonic. And then eventually working abroad in some fine orchestras in Italy and Israel and Thailand. And then over the course of all that time I became a teacher and developed a whole different skill set and a different career, actually, in a way, that's centered around performance but is actually mostly directly related to teaching and helping other people become performers, which means this cycle of continuing on to be a better performer myself.
I'm Joe Anderer. I'm principal horn at the Metropolitan Opera. I'm a founding member of the Orchestra of St. Luke's among the NYU faculty, and do assorted other odd jobs, some really great ones, but those are the main things that I do these days.
I think as a brass player, particularly as a brass player, we gravitate towards larger, longer, more epic tales in music because we are the exclamation points and the commas and the huge turning points and often the big double triple exclamation point at the end that says this is what this whole thing was about. You know, like if you take for instance Mahler, obviously as the extreme example of that. It's not always the case that that's our role. We have plenty of beautiful music that we play that isn't like epic in scope or incredibly long and Wagnerian. You know, there are a lot of beautiful pieces for our instruments. So I like to think that we're deep people and deep musicians. But I think the greatest calling for us is that big stuff.
I asked both Reed and Anderer over the course of the interviews about milestones in brass playing, really trying to get at the idea of tradition in brass. As his former student and the trio's horn player, Mr. Anderer's response was especially interesting to me as he talked about his tradition in horn playing and how he teaches. Reed pointed out something equally important, that especially in music, our own teachers are the people that help provide milestone in our lives.
Well, the horn that I grew up on is a Con 8D. Now I also play some other instruments, but this is the horn that helped to form my concept. And I come from a certain tradition of playing. It goes back to Anton Horner, for whom CRISPA made a large bell instrument around the turn of the 20th century. And the progeny of that is the Con 8D, which started out as a CRISPA copy. And this is the tradition that I came from. My first teacher, Jacinto Vitacolona in Philadelphia, studied with Anton Horner. My second teacher studied with James Chambers, who was a student of Horner's. Horner and his students, Arthur Burve, Mason Jones, and Jimmy Chambers, were the leaders of a kind of a tradition of playing in the U.S. And there are others, and I am a follower of that tradition because I grew up hearing Mason Jones every week. When I came to Juilliard, I listened to lots of New York Philharmonic recordings, and whatever instrument I play, whether it's my Alexander or my Engelbert Schmidt or whatever instrument it is, I think that concept is in there. Well, I like to be influenced by other traditions too. I can't say that I limit myself to that, nor do I try to limit my students to that. I like them to hear all kinds of influences. I think that the idea of a melting pot is really my ideal.
There are people in every musician's life who somehow are those great masters that you're talking about. Whether it's a famous person and then a strain of people who have studied with that person, and then you're somewhere on that line, somewhere on that continuum, you might be one of these people who will then pass off this information and teach a lot like somebody who taught a lot like somebody who taught that person up to this sort of Jedi master, if you will. And I think that it's about love for music and playing these instruments. And my teacher, Donald Knobb, in undergrad, was the most incredible teacher that any undergraduate musician could ever hope to study with. He studied with Emery Remington at the Eastman School of Music, who is one of those famous trombone teachers. And I would consider myself one of many, 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 many people on that line, somewhere inside that lineage, keeping something alive there. My teacher at Rice, David Waters, bass trombonist of the Houston Symphony, was also one of the finest teachers you could ever hope to study with. And my teacher, John Marcellus at the Eastman School of Music, took me under his wing, and I was his teaching assistant, and it was a great honor, and he taught me everything about being a teacher.
But players like Dennis Brain or Bud Herseth or Maurice Andre showed what was possible in their time. Those people showed that they had the tools and they knew how to use them. Somebody like Arnold Jacobs wrote very little, but influenced a lot of people as a teacher. Somebody like Philip Farkas, whose teaching I'm not familiar with, was an enormous influence because he wrote this book at a time when there was no such thing. In terms of history, I think everybody reads the Farkas book as a horn player, and I think it codifies a kind of approach to the instrument that's very sensible, middle of the road, and true. And I think that he has been an enormous influence because he took the trouble to do all that. He wrote several books, particularly The Art of Horn Playing.
You know, to limit your knowledge of anything when it comes to brass playing is to make a mistake, because we don't have as much as other people who play other instruments, certain other instruments have. So we should learn everything we can.
Without a lot of hard work and really dedicated enthusiasm, I think we kind of stagnate and we do not make the cut. But the people that really pursue the things that turn them on will find their voice.
That's all for now, but I'd like to give a big thank you to everyone who's helped with the project thus far, by either giving time, like Dr. Reed and Mr. Anderer, or money, like those people who have contributed so much on Indiegogo.com. If you found anything particularly interesting in this video, let us know and we'll continue to research it through our Art of Brass project. You can help us to continue interviewing great artists and documenting our own programs as the Wenham Street Brass, so that we can share what we find with brass players, musicians, students, and music lovers everywhere. Please go to Indiegogo.com, search for The Art of Brass, and donate today.